Hello Internet, welcome back to an 11-part series where we rank every single weapon in the classic Mega Man series. So as you can see, this is part 3. Last time we explored Mega Man 2's array of weapons. Today, we'll be exploring Mega Man 3's. Big shout-outs to Amelia No Mario 27 for creating this tier list. Thank you very much. So because for repeat viewers who've seen the last 2 parts, I don't want to spend too much time setting up today. However, I will say first, if you haven't watched the other 2 videos, then I recommend you watch them. And also, last time in Mega Man 2, the Metal Blade really screwed around with how the other weapons were ranked. We are not ranking these weapons in a vacuum. We are ranking them in context with each other from the same game. If there's a good weapon and a better weapon, and the better weapon completely usurps the good weapon, then the good weapon can't go high in the tier list. But yeah, let's just get into it. Alright, so we're starting off today with probably the most boring weapon in the entire classic Mega Man series, the Needle Cannon. So the Needle Cannon is a rapid-fire buster. Really, that's it. It alternates slightly in its vertical trajectory. It shoots at slightly alternating heights, so technically speaking, it has a tiny bit more vertical coverage than your buster. The needles are bigger than your pellets also, so it's got a slightly bigger hitbox. Really though, the main appeal of this weapon is the rapid fire feature, and but it is a pretty useful one, to be fair. You can really crank out the damage fast with this weapon, much faster than your average buster, than your usual buster, and the ammo is high, not Metal Blade high, where you can just, or Quick Boomerang high, where you can just spam it and like not even have to worry about ammo. Like, it's not quite that spammable, but you can use it a whole lot and get away with it. Again, I mean, it's a rapid-fire buster with a bigger hitbox and slightly more coverage, so it's pretty good. I mean, again, it's very boring. I will also say, because of how straightforward and similar it is in utility to your regular buster, it's not like Quick Boomerang or especially Firestorm, right, that like have really solid use case outside of the way you would use them as weapons. You can, if you're so inclined, just use your regular buster and generally get through this game fine without Needle Cannon. Like, it's better, but it's not that much better than your buster. So, yeah, starting off, I will put this probably at the top of the B tier. Good, solid tool that is useful a lot of the time, but it's never so... It's always a good weapon for the job, that being your standard Mega Buster's job, but it's never the only tool, and it's not so much better than your Mega Buster that I think it deserves to be an A tier. Quickly, just before we move on to the next weapon, you'll notice I swapped Crash Bomber and Rolling Cutter around from last time. Crash Bomber, I think I oversold the utility aspect of a weapon, considering that if you're so inclined, you don't even have to... You can get through the game fine without breaking any walls. Still better than anything in D tier, I think, but yeah. Alright, so... Magnet Missile. Magnet Missile is another seemingly straightforward weapon that it's just kind of a standard projectile that shoots forwards. With a bigger hitbox. The thing with this weapon is it's our first homing weapon in the series, so what it'll do is, if there's an enemy above it, it'll alter its trajectory up and continue going up. At that point, it doesn't track enemies. It will zoom in on where enemies are at the time, but it won't alter its trajectory in accordance to where the enemy's going. So if you played Cuphead and you've used for Crack Shot, it's a little bit like that, except it can only move in cardinal directions. It can't move diagonally. So yeah, at Homes, it's not the best of a job because of what I just said. It can whiff quite a lot and miss if enemies are moving remotely fast above or below you. It's good for stationary enemies above or below you, and in fairness, there are a few of those in Mega Man 3. The monkey enemies in the Hardman stage really come to mind. But yeah, it's not the best tool of a job. It is, however, especially being able to hit above you at all, is pretty good is in a game like this. You know, having anti-airs where enemies a lot of the time are coming down on you from the air. Yeah, it's always a good bit of utility to have. I will also say it is not the only tool in this game with solid anti-air use, as we'll see later. So in that sense, it's kind of outclassed. One other drawback to this weapon is it has a really weirdly low amount of ammo. I think you only get like 14 shots of it, which again seems a little bit unnecessary to me. I think it really should have more to be more competitive with that other weapon I mentioned. I'm feeling bottom of B tier. It goes to show, right, though, how important that an anti-air in a game like this is, because this weapon has a lot of drawbacks. Like, it's not a good tool in that role compared to later weapons in the series, but it is a very necessary one. And in some ways it's better than the weapon we'll get to later. We'll talk about that later, though. Gemini laser. Gemini laser's really bad, guys. So you shoot out a laser straight and forwards, straight ahead of you, and it's a big laser. It bounces off walls for a while. It's like 10 seconds or something. It might even be more. Technically speaking, this weapon can hit areas that nothing else can. Like, technically, it's your longest ranged weapon. I don't think any other weapon in the series can go like diagonally all the way across the screen in this game. Could be wrong, but yeah, and it's pretty strong, but there are a lot of drawbacks. A, you can only shoot one at a time. B, the trajectory of how it bounces around is an utter mystery to me. I have no idea how to reliably aim this thing. C, there are other enemy weapons in this game, like Magnet Missile or another weapon we'll get to later, that are just a lot more reliable at hitting enemies from the outside of your threat range, from outside of your range with your Mega Buster. Worst of all, though, and the reason why this weapon's so bad, you can't pause the game or shoot another one while this thing is out. You are locked into watching it bounce around the screen. So if you miss, which considering this thing is pretty slow, is easy to do, you could be in a lot of trouble. You just can't use anything else, or do anything, really. It also can lag the game at specific instances, which is not that big a deal, but it was already a bad weapon. It's bad. Just way too slow, clunky, unreliable, way too committal considering how many other drawbacks it has. It even has a really low ammo count. I think I'm gonna put it here. Technically, it can hit things in this game from a range that nothing else in your kit can do, I guess. Technically, if you're really good at this game, you can like 4D chest aim it at places. Just don't generally use something more reliable. And even then, it's so committal. If you miss at all, you're in a lot of hurt generally. Don't do it. Hard Knuckle. So Hard Knuckle was kind of this game's Crash Bomber, in the sense of it can break. This game also has walls that are breakable, and Hard Knuckle breaks them. So it has the same utility as Crash Bomber in that sense. However, it's also just a better weapon. It's pretty strong. It can take down, like, those cat enemies in Top Man stage pretty quickly. Furthermore, it has more ammo, which is good. And you can aim it, you can angle it slightly up or down, which, like, that doesn't give it, like, a ton more coverage, but, you know, like, I have seen it matter before. Again, just a strict upgrade, essentially, of Crash Bomber. More powerful, more ammo, better coverage. It doesn't explode, but considering how weak the explosion of the Crash Bomber was, that's really not a drawback. You don't even have to wait for it to explode on war, so it's also just more convenient and faster in that role as well. I will say, it's still not that great. Like, it's strong, but there are other strong weapons in this game, like the needle cannon, or again, a weapon we'll get to later. So it's not your only powerhouse, and the biggest drawback of this thing is it's slow. It's already a slow-moving projectile, but there's a delay when you first shoot it, where it just stops in front of you before, like, rocketing off. So, again, if an enemy's moving remotely fast, you'll probably miss. It is better than Crash Bomber, like, it is. It's strong. Again, I don't know. It's definitely better than Rolling Cutter. It's the first one I've had to kind of think about a bit more. Is it better than Leaf Shield? I'll put it here for now. I think I changed my mind, actually. I think I'll put, Hard Knuckles slightly better than Air Shooter. It's not quite invalidated in the same way that, Air Shooter is by Metal Blade. Okay, Top Spin. So, Top Spin, I would say, is probably one of the more infamous weapons across the series for being ineffective. Instead of a projectile, it's a melee attack where if you're in midair, you press it and Mega Man does a little spin that hurts enemies. Yeah, it's bad. We all know it's bad. So to get the obvious stuff out of the way, the range is non-existent compared to any ranged attack, which I'm glad that a weapon like this is in the game, but its range really is bad. There are later melee weapons in the series that have at least some range. This is like nothing. You have to put yourself in so much risk to use this. Against bigger enemies, you also, if you use it midair, are bounced back from them, which can make it a bit unwieldy to use over bottomless pits. I say midair, you can only use it in the air. This thing does nothing on the ground, so it's basically only a move. It's essentially only used to kill enemies in the air or landing, which, as we've discussed with enemies in midair, that's generally not a good idea. Landing on small enemies is definitely its best use case. Against those little hopper guys in Shadow Man stage, it's actually pretty good. It doesn't bounce you back, and again, it covers your landing successfully. Yeah, it does not make it useful overall, though. It also has a terrible bug where if you use it in hit stun as you're touching the ground, all your ammo can be taken away at once, which is terrible, especially against the boss. It's that's weak to it, Shadow Man. Shadow Man in general, using this weapon is just a shit show. I don't know how you're not supposed to take damage for it. Yes, it can kill the final boss in one hit, and it's the boss's only weakness. Again, I don't factor in use cases where you have to use it. This is a tier list evaluating whether you would want to use for Top Spin or not. It has a use case, you know, landing on enemies, that's something, but it's so clearly a D tier. Having any use case makes it better than these. Is it better than Bubble Lad? I mean, these are just both such bad weapons. Yeah, I guess, like, being useful against a handful of enemies in, like, 2 or 3 stages is better than being literally only useful in 1 stage. You know, but by that same logic, it's probably better than Time Stopper. So, top of D. I don't think it's literally the worst weapon in the series, but it's really bad. Terrible standalone, and, like, a bit better out of context, but still nothing to celebrate. Search Snake. Search Snake is similar to Bubble Lead, actually, where you lob it out and then it, like, travels across the ground and goes down surfaces. However, unlike Bubble Lead, it can also go up surfaces, and it's not useless in the sense of it actually does damage. Not amazing damage, but you can shoot out a lot of snakes at once. Good especially in Top Man stage for those enemies that stand on the top of the ledges and, like, shoot the tops down at you. Obviously the weakness of this weapon is that it's a ground-bound one, so unless you're hitting it with the initial lob, forget about hitting anything in midair, which is a pretty big weakness, and its vertical hitbox is, like, non-existent. So it's niche by that alone. You know, comparing it to the Magnet Missile, that can only really hit airborne enemies, at least in a practical sense, that you wouldn't use a different weapon for, but enemies are in the air more than they're on the ground. I think C tier is very appropriate. Again, it's kind of here. I'm gonna put it here for now, I think. Well, I might have to come back to that. Again, it's got a home, but it's not that great. No, I'll put it above Leaf Shield because it's better standalone. Niche weapon with that you use occasionally, but nothing too great. Spark Shot. Spark Shot's really bad. Spark Shot is, remember Ice Slasher that freezes enemies from the first game? It's a downgrade from that in every single way imaginable. Yeah, so it could only freeze one enemy at a time. If another enemy hits the frozen enemy, the frozen enemy gets unfrozen and replaced. It doesn't pierce enemies in the same way, and worst of all, by far, when you freeze an enemy, you can't pause the game to use another weapon. So with Ice Slasher, you could pause the game and then you could use your Buster, Thunder Beam, or Firestorm to finish the enemy off. No. With Spark Shock, you can't do that, and like Ice Slasher, the enemy's hitbox doesn't turn off. It's terrible. You can only fire right in front of you. The only time in the game that it's at all useful, I guess, is Big Eyes. It does a decent job at freezing them mid-air for you to get under them, which, like, that's not nothing, I suppose. Big Eyes are strong enemies that do a lot of damage, but it's useful literally against one enemy in the whole game, and anything else, forget about it. It's like Bubble Lead, I think. It's probably here. Yeah, it's really bad. Don't bother. Such a lame weapon. Why'd they make it so weak? Okay, so after a fairly, I would say, disappointing lineup this game, as far as power goes, we end up on the Shadow Blade, which the Shadow Blade is very similar to the Metal Blade. It feels almost like they made it as like an apology for how broken that one was. It's a downgrade for sure. So compared to the Metal Blade, you can only fire it in 5 directions as opposed to 8. You can't fire it down at all, which that's really not that big a deal, to be honest. Like, you were hitting enemies above you all the time anyway. That's fine, to be honest. What's worse is, it doesn't go all across the stage. It's like a boomerang that fires out, some distance and comes back to you, which technically means it's, like, out for longer and thus, like, has a bit more, I don't know, I guess you would say, like, coverage right in front of you. Still, definitely a nerf overall. It doesn't reach the end of the stage, and its range is good enough in most circumstances, but not going across the whole stage. That can matter sometimes. It has less ammo than Metal Blade, about half, which again, like, not the end of the world, but it is a downgrade. You can't spam it in the same way. And definitely the biggest downgrade is you can only fire one at a time. You can't, like, rapid fire it. It's very strong still, but that is a pretty, those are all, you know, taken together, that's a pretty significant downgrade. And it's still the best weapon in the game. Goes to show, though, how strong the Metal Blade is that the Shadow Blade was given all these nerfs compared to that, and it's still a great overall workhorse weapon. It's a great anti-air because of how big it is. It's just a very strong standard projectile. It's, as far as this game goes, it's your best for coverage. It's has a lot of ammo. It's a simple weapon still, but yeah, it is still bar none the best weapon in this game. It's a case of standalone. It's probably not as good as Quick Boomerang. You can't just play the game. It's very comparable. You can't just play the game through, like, one level like you could Quick Boomerang, but at the same time its range is better. Quick Boomerang is a bit more specialized. Yeah, I'm gonna put it in 8 here. And this is what I was talking about with Magnet Missile, is that weapon is definitely competing for Shadow Blade's spot, but Shadow Blade generally does the job better. Shadow Blade is also a lot of bosses' weakness in the end game. It's not quite to the same extent as Metal Blade, but it also has that in its corner. Very solid overall workhorse weapon. Yeah, but that does it for Mega Man 3. As you can see here, pretty weak lineup as far as power goes, as I kind of alluded to before. Also, subjectively, just kind of a boring lineup. A lot of the weapons in this game are just your standard, kind of your standard projectiles with, like, some twists, as opposed to Mega Man 2, that had some more out there stuff, like Time Stopper, or Atomic Fire, or Crash Bomber. The only thing really that is that unique to this game is Top Spin. But yeah, still, that's it for part 3 of the series. If you liked the video, disliked, maybe dislike, subscribe if you can. I'm trying to grow my channel, which would really help. Did I miss anything about any of these weapons? I'm speaking about these weapons from, like, you know, a seasoned perspective, but certainly not an expert, so please tell me in the comments if there's, like, utility to these weapons that I missed. But yeah, see you guys in Mega Man 4. Thank you for watching.